I knelt before the altar in my white dress, ready to say yes forever, when my fiancé leaned down and whispered in my ear, "I need to tell you something before we do this. About your sister." My name is Catherine. I'm 32 years old and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. 3 months ago, I thought I had the perfect life. A successful career as a marketing director, a beautiful apartment downtown, and most importantly, I was engaged to Daniel, the man I'd been dating for 4 years. Daniel was everything I'd ever wanted: attentive, successful, charming, and he got along perfectly with my family. My parents adored him. My younger sister, Emma, always said he was the best thing that ever happened to me. We were planning the wedding of my dreams, scheduled for a Saturday in September at a historic chapel on the outskirts of town. But let me back up a little so you understand how I got here. Kneeling at that altar, feeling my entire world crumble in a matter of seconds. Everything started to change about 6 months before the wedding. Daniel began working longer hours at his law firm. He said they were preparing for an important case, that he needed to be completely dedicated. I understood. I've always been a supportive partner, but then came the late-night phone calls he'd take in another room. The weekends he said he needed to work but came home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. The distant looks during dinner, as if his mind was somewhere else entirely. I tried to ignore the signs. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the wedding stress was making me see things that weren't there. My friends said it was normal for couples to go through difficult phases. My mother insisted that all men get nervous before marriage. "It's just cold feet, honey," she'd say while we chose flower arrangements. And if you're watching this and relating to any part of my story, please subscribe to the channel. I share these experiences because I know I'm not alone, and maybe you're going through something similar right now. Emma, my 28-year-old sister, had always been my best friend. We grew up sharing secrets, clothes, dreams. When our father left us when I was 12 and she was 8, we became even closer. It was us against the world. She was the maid of honor at my wedding. She helped me choose my dress, plan the bachelorette party, organize every detail. We spent hours together at bridal shops, bakeries, florists. She seemed as excited about my wedding as I was. But there was something I didn't notice. Or maybe I didn't want to notice. The way Emma's eyes would light up when Daniel entered the room, how she always found an excuse to touch his arm when they talked. The inside jokes they started sharing that I wasn't part of. The times I'd arrive home and find them on the couch, quickly moving apart, saying they were just talking about the wedding. 2 months before the big day, I found a receipt in Daniel's jacket pocket. It was from an expensive jewelry store downtown. My heart raced. I thought maybe he was buying me a wedding gift, something special. But the date on the receipt was from a Tuesday afternoon when he'd told me he was in depositions all day. And the amount. It was enough for a very significant piece of jewelry. I didn't say anything. I kept that receipt hidden in my drawer, looking at it every night before bed, trying to convince myself there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe it was a surprise. Maybe it was for his mother. Maybe. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. The bachelorette party was 3 weeks before the wedding. Emma organized everything. A weekend in Asheville, a rented cabin in the mountains, my closest friends, champagne, games, laughter. It should have been one of the best weekends of my life. And it was, until the last night. If this story is keeping you hooked, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything, and there's so much more to tell. We were all a bit drunk, playing truth or dare like teenagers. It was my turn, and someone dared me to call Daniel and tell him something naughty. I grabbed my phone, giggling, but realized I'd left it charging in my room upstairs. "I'll get it," Emma said quickly, jumping up. "You stay here and enjoy." She was gone for almost 15 minutes. When she came back, her face was flushed, and she handed me the phone without meeting my eyes. I didn't think much of it at the time. We were all tipsy, tired. But later that night, when everyone was asleep, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Something in Emma's expression bothered me. A guilt I couldn't quite place. I unlocked my phone and checked my messages. There was a text thread with Daniel from earlier that evening. My heart stopped. The last message, sent just 20 minutes ago while Emma had my phone, read, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Same place as always. I love you. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. It wasn't my writing style, it wasn't something I would say. And Daniel's response came immediately. Love you more. Make sure Catherine doesn't suspect anything. After the wedding, we can finally be together the way we want. I felt like I was going to vomit. I read those messages over and over, hoping I was misunderstanding, hoping it was some kind of sick joke. But it wasn't. My sister had sent that message. My sister was having an affair with my fiancé. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in that cabin bed staring at the ceiling, listening to my friends snoring softly around me, and feeling my entire world shatter silently. Part of me wanted to scream, to wake everyone up, to confront Emma right there. But another part of me, the part that was in complete shock, just froze. The next morning, I acted normal. I smiled, I laughed, I thanked Emma for the amazing weekend. I watched her hug me goodbye and tell me how much she loved me, how excited she was to stand by my side at the altar. And I said nothing. Because I needed to know more. I needed to understand how deep this betrayal went. Please, if you're finding value in this story, take a second to subscribe. These experiences need to be shared, and your engagement helps me keep telling them. The following week was torture. I became a detective in my own life. I checked Daniel's phone when he was in the shower. I followed him one evening when he said he had a late meeting. And yes, I saw them together. I watched my fiancé and my sister meet at a small cafe on the other side of town, somewhere neither of them thought anyone would recognize them. I watched them hold hands across the table. I watched him brush a strand of hair from her face with such tenderness it made me physically ill. I sat in my car, parked far enough away that they couldn't see me, and I cried. I cried for the 4 years I'd invested in Daniel. I cried for the sister I thought I knew. I cried for the family dinners that would never be the same. I cried for the wedding that was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. But here's the thing. I didn't cancel the wedding. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I'm crazy, that I should have called everything off immediately, exposed them both, walked away, and maybe you're right. But in that moment, sitting in that car, watching the two people I loved most in the world betray me, something else took over. Not sadness, not even anger. It was something colder, something calculating. I wanted them to suffer the way I was suffering. I wanted them to feel the weight of their guilt. I wanted them to stand in front of all our family and friends, knowing what they'd done, waiting for me to expose them. I wanted that wedding day to be their nightmare, not mine. So I went home, dried my tears, and I planned. For 2 more weeks, I pretended everything was fine. I confirmed vendors, finalized seating charts, went to my final dress fitting. I smiled at Emma when she came over to help address invitations. I kissed Daniel goodnight and told him how lucky I was to marry him. And all the while, I gathered evidence. I took screenshots of their messages. I recorded a conversation where Emma called him baby when she thought I couldn't hear. I documented every lie, every late meeting, every suspicious moment. The night before the wedding, we had the rehearsal dinner. Both families were there, toasting to our future, celebrating our love. Daniel's parents gave a beautiful speech about how perfect we were together. My mother cried happy tears and hugged Emma, saying how blessed she was to have 2 daughters who loved each other so much. If you're still with me in this story, please show your support by subscribing. There's still so much more to unfold, and I need you with me for what comes next. I stood up to give a toast. I held my champagne glass and looked around at all those smiling faces. I looked at Daniel, so handsome in his suit, grinning at me with what I once thought was love. I looked at Emma, my maid of honor, wearing the blush pink dress we'd chosen together, her eyes sparkling with what I now knew was guilt and anticipation. "Thank you all for being here," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Tomorrow is going to be a day none of us will ever forget. A day of truth, of revelations, of seeing people for who they really are." I paused, watching confusion flicker across a few faces. I can't wait to stand at that altar and face my future with complete honesty. Daniel looked at me strangely. Emma's smile faltered for just a moment. But then everyone was clapping, thinking it was just nerves, just bride jitters. They had no idea what I was planning. That night, alone in my apartment per tradition, I laid out my wedding dress and stared at it for hours. Part of me still couldn't believe I was going through with this. Part of me wanted to call the whole thing off, pack my bags, and disappear. But I'd come this far. I needed closure. I needed them to know that I knew. The morning of the wedding was surreal. My bridesmaids arrived early, popping champagne, doing my hair and makeup, laughing and taking pictures. Emma was there, of course, fussing over every detail, making sure everything was perfect. "You're going to be the most beautiful bride," she kept saying. "Daniel is so lucky." I almost broke then. Almost told her everything. But I held it together. I put on that dress. I let them pin flowers in my hair. I smiled for the photos. And when it was time, I got in the car that would take me to the chapel. The church was beautiful. White roses everywhere, exactly as I'd imagined. Sunlight streaming through stained glass windows. 200 guests seated in wooden pews, waiting to witness our union. The string quartet playing softly. It was everything I'd dreamed of, and it was all a lie. I walked down that aisle on my uncle's arm, looking straight ahead at Daniel standing at the altar. He looked nervous, which I'd expected. What I hadn't expected was the genuine emotion in his eyes. For a moment, just a moment, I wondered if I'd gotten it all wrong, if there was some other explanation I hadn't considered. But then I glanced at Emma, standing to the side in her maid of honor spot, and I saw it. The look she exchanged with Daniel when she thought no one was watching. And I knew. I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew this was real. Before we share what happened next, I need to ask you something. If you're invested in this story, if you want to know how it ends, please subscribe to this channel. It helps me more than you know, and we're about to get to the part that changed everything. The ceremony began. The pastor spoke about love, commitment, honesty. Each word felt like a knife. We got to the vows. Daniel went first, and I have to admit he was good. He spoke about how I'd changed his life, how I'd made him a better man, how he couldn't wait to spend forever with me. Some people in the audience were crying. His mother was beaming, and all I could think about were those text messages. After the wedding, we can finally be together the way we want. Then it was my turn. I opened my mouth to recite the traditional vows we'd agreed on. But something shifted in me. I looked out at all those faces, all those people who loved us, who believed in us, who had no idea what was really happening. "Daniel," I began, and my voice was stronger than I expected. 4 years ago, when we met, I thought I'd found my soulmate. I thought I'd found someone who would never lie to me, never betray me, never break my trust. I saw his expression change. Confusion mixed with the first hint of fear. But recently, I've learned that sometimes the people we trust most are the ones capable of hurting us deepest. I turned to look at Emma. Her face had gone white. Sometimes betrayal comes from the places we least expect, from the people we love most. The chapel had gone completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. "I found out about you two," I said quietly, but in that silence, everyone heard. "I've known for weeks." The gasps that erupted were immediate. Daniel's face drained of color. Emma took a step back, nearly stumbling. My mother stood up in her pew, confusion and horror mixing on her face. "Catherine, let me explain." Daniel started, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. "Explain. Explain how you've been sleeping with my sister for the past 6 months while planning our wedding? Explain how you exchanged I love yous while I was picking out our wedding cake? Explain how you plan to continue your affair after we were married?" And that's when Emma did something I didn't expect. She didn't cry, she didn't apologize. She lifted her chin and said, "He loves me, Catherine. He's always loved me. You're just too blind to see it." The crowd erupted. People were standing, shouting, some trying to leave, others moving closer to hear better. It was chaos. My mother was crying. Daniel's parents were frozen in shock. My bridesmaids had rushed to my side. But here's where it gets complicated. Because that's when I knelt. Right there at the altar, in front of everyone. And Daniel knelt too, his face desperate. And that's when he leaned toward me and whispered those words that started this whole story. "I need to tell you something before we do this. About your sister." Make sure you're subscribed because you need to hear what he said next. Emma's been blackmailing me, he whispered urgently, his hands gripping mine. That jewelry receipt you found. It was a necklace she demanded I buy her, or she'd tell you that we slept together. But Catherine, it was once. One time, a year ago, I was drunk. It was the biggest mistake of my life. She's been holding it over my head ever since, threatening to ruin us if I didn't keep seeing her. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you without losing you. I stared at him, my mind reeling. Was he telling the truth? Or was this just another lie, another manipulation? I looked back at Emma, who had heard what he said. Her face was twisted with rage now. That's not true, she screamed. He pursued me. He told me he never loved you, that he was only marrying you for your money, for your connections. He said he wanted to leave you but couldn't figure out how. You're insane, Daniel yelled back, standing up. I have the texts where you threatened me, where you said you'd destroy Catherine if I didn't do what you wanted. The pastor had backed away completely. Guests were pulling out their phones, recording everything. It was a disaster. It was humiliating. It was everything I'd wanted and nothing I'd expected. Because here's the truth. I don't know who's lying. Both of them are begging me to believe them. Both of them have evidence that could support their story. Daniel showed me texts that could be interpreted as threats. Emma has texts that could be read as him initiating their affair. They're both crying now, both claiming to be the victim, both saying the other one is a manipulative monster. And me? I'm standing here in my wedding dress, in front of 200 people with my entire life falling apart, and I don't know what's true anymore. My mother pushed through the crowd and grabbed my arm. We're leaving, she said firmly. Right now. But I couldn't move, because I realized something. It didn't matter who was telling the truth. It didn't matter who seduced whom, who lied more, who hurt me first. What mattered was that they both betrayed me. They both lied. They both kept secrets. They both destroyed my trust. Whether Daniel was a cheating manipulator who pursued my sister, or whether Emma was a blackmailer who trapped him, the end result was the same. They both participated. They both chose themselves over me. They both watched me plan this wedding, watched me smile and dream and hope, knowing it was all built on lies. If you've made it this far in the story, please, I'm asking you to subscribe. This kind of support is what keeps me going, what helps me process everything that happened. I took off my engagement ring. It felt heavy in my palm, heavier than it ever had on my finger. I looked at it for a long moment, this symbol of a promise that meant nothing. I don't care anymore, I said, and my voice echoed in that silent chapel. I don't care who's telling the truth. I don't care who started it or why. You both betrayed me. You both lied to me. You both destroyed the two most important relationships in my life. I handed the ring to the pastor, who took it with shaking hands. Then I turned to leave. Wait, Emma called out. Catherine, please. You have to understand. I don't have to understand anything, I said without turning around. You're my sister. He was my fiancé. That's all I needed to know, and you both forgot that. I walked down that aisle alone, still in my wedding dress, passing shocked faces and whispered conversations. My mother and my bridesmaids followed me out. Behind us, I could hear Daniel and Emma still arguing, their voices rising, accusations flying. Outside the chapel, the photographer was waiting, ready to capture our happy exit. Instead, he caught me, mascara running, dress dirty from kneeling, walking away from everything I'd planned. The next few weeks were a blur. The story went viral, of course. Someone's video from the wedding made it to social media. I became that bride whose wedding imploded at the altar. I got messages from strangers, some supportive, some cruel, all invasive. I moved out of my apartment. Couldn't stay somewhere with so many memories. Daniel tried to contact me constantly, switching between apologies and accusations, trying different strategies to win me back or at least clear his name. Emma sent a long letter explaining her side, painting herself as a victim of manipulation. I read neither their messages nor the letter. I blocked them both. My mother had to choose between her daughters. She chose me, but I can see the pain in her eyes. She lost a daughter too that day. Our family gatherings are different now, quieter, sadder. There's an empty chair at every dinner. Here's where I am now, 3 months later. I've thrown myself into work. I've started therapy. I've tried to rebuild my life piece by piece. Some days are better than others. Some days I'm angry. Some days I'm sad. Some days I just feel numb. But here's what I keep coming back to. What keeps me up at night? I don't know what really happened. I don't know if Daniel was a cheater who got caught or a victim who got trapped. I don't know if Emma was a homewrecker or if she genuinely fell in love and made terrible choices. I don't know if they're both lying, both telling the truth, or somewhere in between. And part of me wonders if I should have handled it differently. Should I have confronted them privately instead of publicly? Should I have called off the wedding before that day? Should I have listened to their explanations, tried to understand, tried to forgive? Because here's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. It doesn't just break your trust in the people who hurt you. It breaks your trust in yourself. It makes you question your own judgment, your own perceptions, your own worth. If I couldn't see this coming, what else am I blind to? If the two people I trusted most could lie to my face for months, how do I ever trust anyone again? Before I finish, I need to ask one more time. If this story resonated with you, if you've been through something similar or just want to support someone sharing their truth, please subscribe to this channel. Your support means the world. I've been offered multiple opportunities to hear them out. Daniel's mother called me last week, begging me to at least listen to his full story. A mutual friend told me Emma is in therapy now, dealing with what she calls her self-destructive patterns. They both want closure. They both want forgiveness. They both want me to understand. But I don't know if I have it in me. Some days I think maybe I should listen. Maybe there's a version of this story that would make sense, that would help me heal. Other days I think the healthiest thing I can do is keep them both in my past and move forward. My therapist asks me what I want. What would feel right to me? And honestly, I don't know. I don't know if I want revenge or reconciliation. I don't know if I want answers or just peace. I don't know if I'll ever be able to separate the truth from the lies. What I do know is this. I'm surviving. Some days that's enough. Some days it has to be. I've been on a few dates, nothing serious. I'm not sure I'm ready for serious, but I'm trying. I'm learning to trust again, slowly. I'm learning that not everyone will betray me, that my judgment isn't completely broken, that I deserve better than what I got. I've also been working on forgiveness. Not for them. For me. Because holding on to this anger, this hurt, this confusion, it's like drinking poison and expecting them to die. I'm trying to let go of the fantasy of what my life was supposed to be and accept what it actually is. But I'd be lying if I said I had all the answers. I'd be lying if I said I've moved on completely. There are still nights when I replay that wedding day in my head, wondering if I did the right thing, wondering what would have happened if I'd kept quiet, if I'd married him, if I'd tried to make it work despite everything. Would I have been able to pretend I didn't know? Would the secret have eaten me alive? Would I have ended up divorced a year later anyway? Or would we have somehow worked through it, built something new on the ruins of trust? I'll never know. And maybe that's okay. Maybe not every story has a clear ending. Maybe not every question has an answer. So now I'm turning to you, because I've told you my story, laid bare my pain and my confusion and my choices. And I need to know, what would you have done? Would you have exposed them at the altar like I did? Would you have canceled the wedding beforehand? Would you have tried to work it out? And here's the bigger question. Should I listen to their explanations now? Should I let them tell me their sides of the story, try to piece together what really happened? Or should I let sleeping dogs lie and keep moving forward? Part of me thinks I need closure. I need to know the truth, even if it hurts. But another part of me thinks the truth doesn't matter anymore. That whatever happened, the damage is done, and no explanation will change that. I also wonder about forgiveness. Not reconciliation, but forgiveness. Can I forgive Emma for betraying our sisterhood? Can I forgive Daniel for breaking his promise to me? Can I forgive myself for not seeing it sooner? Should I even try? These are the questions that keep me up at night. These are the dilemmas I'm still working through. And I don't have the answers. Maybe you do. Maybe you've been through something similar and found a way through. Maybe you're going through it right now and feeling just as lost as I am. So I'm asking you, truly asking, what would you do in my place? Would you seek the truth or let it go? Would you forgive or hold on to your anger? Would you try to rebuild any of these relationships or cut them off completely? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Tell me your story if you have one. Tell me what you think I should do. Because right now, I'm at a crossroads, and I genuinely don't know which path to take. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. Share this story if it resonated with you. Let's build a community of people who've been through betrayal and are trying to find their way back to trust, to peace, to themselves. I knelt at that altar expecting to start my forever. Instead, I stood up and started my life over. I'm still not sure if that was the ending I deserved or just the one I got. But I'm here. I'm surviving. And some days, that's enough. What would you do in my place?